I'm still reeling from what went down last Saturday night, and I need to vent because I'm furious, bewildered, and my mind is racing from all the chaos that ensued. Honestly, what in the world just happened to my life? I've been with Connor for around 8 months now, and things have generally been solid. He's 26, and we connected through mutual friends at a summer barbecue last year. Typical relationship stuff, you know? We hang out a few times a week. He's met my family, I've met his, and we do cute couple things like hitting up mini golf, binge-watching shows, or strolling through weekend farmers markets. But here's where it gets strange. Connor has this intense fixation on social media that I didn't think was a huge issue until last weekend. He's constantly updating Instagram, posting multiple stories daily, always tagging people and places, sharing every meal, gym session, or random thought. I'm more of a low-key scroller, maybe posting a photo once a week, usually just a sunset or my coffee. Different approaches to social media. No problem, right? Nope. Turns out I was wrong. The first clue something was off showed up about 3 weeks ago when Connor started dropping subtle comments about my Instagram. We'd be out at dinner. He'd strike a pose for a selfie, and if I didn't post it right away, he'd ask why I was holding off. Or he'd point out that I shared a picture of my breakfast, but didn't mention we were eating together. Minor things that seemed innocent at the time, but now I realize I should have noticed the pattern. Then, 2 weeks ago, work got insanely hectic, with late nights that left me barely any time to check social media, let alone post. Connor brought up a few times that I hadn't shared any photos of us recently, and I dismissed it because, seriously, who tracks that kind of thing? I thought he was just joking around, and I'd post something when I had a moment. Fast forward to last Saturday. Connor's friend Timothy was throwing a birthday bash at his place, with about 30 people chilling in his backyard, drinks in hand, music playing. I was genuinely excited for it. Needing a break after a stressful work week, Connor and I arrived around 8, grabbed some beers, and started chatting with folks. The first couple of hours felt completely normal. I was catching up with some friends I hadn't seen in ages, while Connor was in his element, snapping photos of everything and posting to his story. I remember thinking it was actually kind of sweet seeing him so at ease, being social, cracking jokes, and vibing with his crew. But around 10:30, the mood shifted. Connor approached me while I was chatting with Timothy's girlfriend Hazel about her new job, and he had this odd vibe. He seemed on edge, constantly checking his phone, scrolling through Instagram and Facebook with a frustrated look. I asked if he was okay, and he brushed it off, said he was fine, but it was obvious he wasn't. About 20 minutes later, he gently pulled me aside to a quieter spot near the backyard fence. He started questioning why I hadn't been posting pictures of us together lately, and when I'd last featured him on my Instagram story. I was thrown off because, as I explained, work had me swamped, and I'd barely been posting anything at all. But instead of calming him down, that seemed to upset him even more. Then Connor dropped something that, looking back, was a glaring warning sign. He expressed to me that genuine partners take pride in publicly celebrating their relationships, and he was beginning to question whether I was ashamed of him or keeping my options open. I was genuinely taken aback, as his words seemed to come out of the blue and didn't align with how intertwined our lives are or the time we spend together. I attempted to clarify that my approach to social media has no bearing on my feelings for him, and that many people choose to keep their online presence private. But he wasn't receptive. He insisted that the girlfriends of his friends frequently share posts about their partners, accusing me of being secretive and strange. Our discussion spiraled, and I could sense others nearby starting to pick up on the tension of our disagreement. That's when things took a wild turn, in a way that still feels surreal. Connor, apparently convinced he needed to make his point, decided to involve everyone else in the issue. He marched back to the main party area and loudly declared that the group needed to weigh in on our dispute. Mortified, I trailed behind, desperately trying to defuse the situation before it escalated further. But Connor was already brandishing his phone, urging everyone to check my Instagram profile to see how I never post about him. He scrolled through my recent posts, highlighting images of my coffee, my dog, a sunset, a book I was reading, anything but him. The embarrassment I felt as 30 pairs of eyes fixated on my phone screen, while Connor dissected my social media like it was a courtroom exhibit, was overwhelming. People were visibly uneasy and tried to steer the conversation elsewhere, but Connor pressed on, growing more animated and dramatic, insisting my post proved I was ashamed of him. Then came the moment that made me realize our relationship might be doomed. In front of everyone, Connor stared at me and declared I was acting like a fake partner, likely embarrass him, and that true partners don't conceal their relationships like shameful secrets. His tone was so harsh and accusatory, delivered so publicly, that it felt like a verbal slap. I told him he was being absurd and that we should discuss this privately, but he was too far gone. Connor threw up his hands, announced he was done wasting time with someone who treated him like he was invisible, and stormed out of the party, leaving an awkward silence in his wake. I stayed for another hour, attempting to smooth things over and apologizing to Timothy for the scene. But honestly, everyone was looking at me like I was the issue. A few people asked if Connor was okay, and whether we often argued about social media, which only deepened my discomfort, making me question if I'd somehow been thoughtless. By the time I got home around midnight, I had 17 texts from Connor, ranging from furious rants about how I'd embarrass him in front of his friends' accusations that I was likely talking to other guys, which explained my reluctance to post about us. His messages grew increasingly erratic and demanding, insisting I post a photo of us immediately to prove I was ashamed of him. Exhausted, confused, and desperate to end the conflict, I posted a picture of us in the party at 1 a.m. Within 5 minutes, Connor commented, "Finally decided to stop hiding me like some dirty secret," which made me want to delete the post entirely, as it now seemed coerced. I hoped that would close the matter and we could sort things out calmly the next day. But apparently, Connor's family had been following the social media saga, because on Sunday morning, I woke up to a text from his mom, Nancy. And that's when this story took a turn I'm still grappling with, making the party fiasco seem minor by comparison. First update. Wow, you guys, the responses to my last post were incredible, and so many of you predicted exactly what would happen next. A huge shout out to the person who warned that family involvement would make things 10 times worse. You nailed it. On Sunday morning, I received a lengthy text from Connor's mom, Nancy, that essentially tore into me. She began by saying she'd seen Connor's Instagram story from the party and noticed how distressed he appeared. Then she mentioned my post and Connor's comment, saying she wanted to understand what was happening between us. But then Nancy went completely off track. She told me she'd raised Connor to value relationships where both partners take pride in being together, expressing concern that I wasn't treating our relationship seriously. She shared that when she was dating Connor's dad, she was eager to show him off to everyone, and that women who truly love their partners want the world to know. The part that really stung was when Nancy pointed out that I rarely mentioned Connor on social media, suggesting she was worried I was treating him like a casual fling rather than appreciating what a great catch he is. She concluded her message by expressing hope that I'd learn to value her son properly, noting that exceptional men like Connor won't linger forever for women who seem embarrassed by them. I was genuinely shocked that his mother was meddling in our relationship issues, scolding me about my social media activity, as if I were some clueless teen. I captured a screenshot of her message and sent it to my best friend Violet, who called me right away, exclaiming, "What is wrong with these people?" Before I could even decide how to reply to Nancy, Connor began flooding my phone with calls and texts, insisting we needed to talk immediately. I was still in my pajamas, sipping coffee, and trying to wrap my head around his mom's words. But Connor was adamant that I come to his apartment right away to address what happened at the party. I told him I needed time to think, but he kept pressing, saying we couldn't let things fester, and that he'd been up all night replaying our argument. He sounded truly upset and kept apologizing for his public outburst. Reluctantly, I agreed to head over around noon to hash things out. When I arrived at Connor's place, he immediately dove into a lengthy explanation about how vital social media is to him, since it keeps him connected to distant friends and family. He mentioned that his college friends always post about their partners, and when I don't share anything about us, it makes him feel like he doesn't exist in my world. Connor admitted he'd been feeling insecure for weeks, noticing I post about everything but our relationship, which led him to wonder if I was keeping my options open or planning to end things. He explained that the party incident happened because he'd been drinking and all those pent-up emotions erupted in the worst way. I try to clarify that my social media habits don't reflect my feelings for him, and that many people prefer keeping their relationships private online. I explain that constantly posting feels like I'm less present in our moment together, and I'd rather cherish our time than curate for Instagram. But Connor kept returning to his point that couples should proudly showcase each other publicly, and my actions were sending confusing signals to those around us. He said his friends have been questioning if we're having issues because I never mention him online, and it's humiliating for him to constantly explain why his girlfriend acts like he's invisible. Our conversation dragged on for nearly 2 hours, with both of us rehashing the same points. Connor argued that sharing on social media is a standard part of modern relationships, while I insisted that forced posts feel inauthentic and uncomfortable. Neither of us was willing to compromise, and I could sense our frustration building again. Then Connor brought up his mom's text, saying Nancy was just worried about our relationship because she could see how much this was affecting him. He defended her message, claiming she was trying to help and raise fair points about how committed couples usually act. I told him it was completely out of line for his mother to lecture me about Instagram, and that our relationship shouldn't involve his family scrutinizing my online presence. Connor got defensive, saying Nancy was just looking out for him and that I was blowing it out of proportion. The discussion was going nowhere, and I started feeling like Connor didn't grasp why his behavior at the party was so embarrassing and inappropriate. I told him I needed time to consider whether we could reconcile our differing views on privacy and relationships. At that, Connor panicked and began backtracking, saying he didn't want to end things over something trivial and that we could find a middle ground. He proposed I could occasionally post about us without it feeling forced, and he'd try to be less hung up on social media. I was mulling over whether that could work when Connor's phone started buzzing with notifications. He glanced at it, his face shifting oddly, then mentioned that his sister Erica wanted to see the Instagram post I'd made Saturday night. Before I could ask why it mattered, Connor showed me his phone, where Erica had shared my post to her Instagram story. Not just normally, but with text overlay that read, "Some women don't deserve good guys," followed by several eye-rolling emojis. She tagged her friends and added another story slide about how she couldn't believe some people needed to be coerced into showing appreciation for their relationships. With her 3,000 followers, Erica was essentially branding me as a terrible girlfriend to her entire audience, based on one post and whatever story Connor had shared with her. Connor tried to brush it off, saying Erica was just being protective and didn't mean anything serious. But I'd had enough. I told him that his sister publicly shaming me online was the last straw, and I couldn't handle his whole family inserting themselves into our relationship drama. Connor pleaded with me not to make any rash decisions while I was upset and promised to talk to Erica about removing the story. He said his family just needed time to understand my perspective and that they'd realize they'd misjudged me once they got to know me better. But here's what's been gnawing at me since Sunday. When Connor showed me Erica's story, I noticed she'd already received dozens of replies from people agreeing with her, adding their own remarks about girlfriends who don't value good men. My photo was being screenshot and shared with comments I couldn't even see, spreading to strangers I'll never know. I left Connor's apartment without giving him a clear answer about our relationship, but honestly, I'm leaning toward breaking things off. His failure to see how inappropriate his family's actions are makes me think this will only get worse if I stay. But here's where I need your advice, because something happened yesterday that's making me question everything about the situation and Connor's intentions. Update 2 posted 5 days later. First, thank you all for your comments on my last update. You're absolutely right that Connor's family's behavior is totally out of line, and I should have bolted the moment his mom started preaching about what it means to be a real woman. The person who pointed out this reeks of controlling behavior hit the nail on the head. So, after leaving Connor's apartment on Sunday, completely exhausted from our 2-hour circular argument, I decided I needed an outside perspective on this mess. I called my older sister, Jasmine, who lives across the country, and laid out everything, from the party blow-up to Nancy's text to Erica's Instagram story. Jasmine listened patiently, then asked a single question that stopped me in my tracks. Has Connor ever shown this kind of intensity about anything else in our relationship, or is this social media fixation completely unlike him? Upon reflection, I came to see that Connor was always preoccupied with how things appear to others. I had brushed it off, thinking he was just sociable and extroverted. For instance, he loved dining at fashionable spots where he could share the location online. He was very concerned about his friends' opinions of me, and often remarked on how couples should present themselves in public. Each of these habits seemed innocent on its own, so I hadn't pieced them together before. But looking at them collectively, they revealed someone deeply invested in others' approval. On Monday morning, Connor texted me, asking if I reflected on our previous conversation and if I was ready to find a middle ground. I chose to be upfront and told him that our talk had made me realize how much our values diverged, especially regarding privacy and relationships. He quickly tried to smooth things over, saying he understood I needed time to process, but urged me not to blow things out of proportion. He claimed that social media disputes were common among couples, and that we could resolve this if I met him halfway. I explained that the issue went beyond social media. It was about how he handled the public embarrassment at the party and justified his family's inappropriate actions. I told him that healthy relationships don't involve partners policing each other's online presence or families publicly criticizing someone for not sharing enough couple photos. Connor got defensive, insisting I was exaggerating the situation and that his family was just protective because they care about him. He suggested that if I posted about us occasionally, the drama would vanish, and we could return to being happy. But his response only confirmed that he didn't grasp why this was a problem. He saw his family's behavior as a minor inconvenience I should overlook, not a serious issue of boundaries and respect. When I pointed this out, he called me dramatic, saying all families get involved in relationships at times. Our conversation dragged on for over an hour, with Connor arguing that I was overreacting and that we could fix everything if I were more open to his priorities. He kept insisting that sharing relationship updates online was normal and that my reluctance to do so was the root of our problems. I finally told him I needed more time to assess our long-term compatibility and wasn't ready to commit to changing my online habits. He said he respected that, but asked me not to make a final decision while upset about his family's actions. The next morning, Tuesday, I planned to focus on work and distance myself from the relationship tension. But around 10 a.m., my coworker Nola texted me, asking if I was okay. She said someone had been inquiring about me at the coffee shop near our office. Apparently, while Nola was getting her usual latte, the barista mentioned that a woman had come in earlier, asking if I was a regular, what I ordered, and whether I seemed happy. The barista found it odd enough to mention to Nola, since we worked together. I initially wondered if Connor's mom, Nancy, was snooping, but Nola described the woman as young, with dark hair and flashy, Instagram-style jewelry. It had to be Erica, Connor's sister. The thought of her tracking down places I frequented and questioning people about me was deeply unsettling. I texted Connor immediately, asking if he knew why Erica was digging into my routine. He called me right away, sounding genuinely surprised and concerned. He said he had no clue why she'd do that and promised to call her to get answers. An hour later, he texted, claiming it was a misunderstanding. Erica was in the area for work and stopped by the coffee shop after seeing it in my Instagram stories, curious about their drinks. He said she casually mentioned knowing someone who went there often, and the situation got blown out of proportion. But that explanation didn't add up. I'd never posted about that coffee shop. My Instagram stories, when I post them, are usually just sunsets or my dog. When I pointed this out, Connor said Erica must have mixed up the location, and that it was just a coincidence. I told him that his sister asking about me at places near my workplace felt like stalking, and I was deeply uncomfortable with his family's level of involvement. He accused me of jumping to conclusions, suggesting Erica was just trying to connect with me by learning about places I liked. His defense of such inappropriate behavior, instead of being alarmed, showed me that his family operated with boundaries I couldn't accept. When I said this, he called me paranoid, insisting his family was just trying to understand me better. On Wed,